Dermot, I might just go to you first. So how long have you been using protected urea now? And I suppose this year you're planning to go to 100%. So what how have you prepared for that on farm? Have you ordered some this year already?
Yeah, we've been using it for, I suppose, about 3 to 4 years, and this, with the, I suppose you could call it a fertilizer crisis in the last couple of months, and I'm part of a purchasing group, and
Okay.
we actually didn't look for protected urea, and I accept now that if I knew then a couple of months ago what I've read up in the last few weeks, I would have been looking for the protected urea. But what's done is done. We got granular urea, and I suppose we're lucky to get fertilizer at all. But it'll be protected urea that I'll be using from now on anyway. And I think the farmers and the industry will have to make sure that it's there to be ready for purchase.
Yeah, I suppose if farmers don't get their orders in and their intention that they want to use protected urea, it won't be there. So that's an important thing for them to do. And just on the clover, like you showed your P's and K's and your pH there, Dermot. So you're doing very well on them. Did you notice your clover establishing maybe better where your pH and your P's and K's were right or nearly there?
Not really, because well, the P's and K's are, well, I'd like to think that P's and K's and pH are fairly right on the whole on the home farm, but where the stitching in was done, we got a drought after that, the month of June, and it did come to some extent, but it was poor all summer, and it's just not good enough at the moment. We may have to stitch it in again or broadcast it, but we'd be intending to do it earlier in the year.
Yeah. So maybe the drought was unlucky maybe when you sowed it. So you have a plan to make changes for it next year anyway. And how are you getting on with the umbilical system, or what advantages do you see in the umbilical system?
Well, I'd say the compaction is probably the big one, that you're not going out with the heavy slurry tanker, and I suppose we have a slurry lagoon, and you would have a lot of slurry tanker work with the watery slurry that comes out of a lagoon. So you nearly need somebody on the tractor full time. It's so a few years ago we used to get a contractor in, and when we did up the figures, we reckoned that it would probably pay us to have our own machine. Now you could debate up and down whether we were right or not, but that's what we did. It works for us, and I'm not saying it's for everyone.
Yeah, very good. So I might go to some of the other questions now. So Dimpna, do you have any idea of what percentages that on the dairy cows, what percentage fall into the different bands? So there's three bands for the new nitrates, isn't there?
Sorry, Siobhan. Yes, the 3 bands. The data shows that there's 70% in the middle band, and 15% in the lower band, and 15% in the higher band.
Okay, very good.
Yeah, so it will have an impact on farms in terms of stocking rate, and it's important to just make sure that you keep within the limits and apply for derogation if you need to.
Yeah, and while we have you there, Dimpna, now you might know the answer to this, but will a total farm figure be always taken for nitrates calculations in the future, or is there a danger that the grazing platform could be counted separately, the outblocks or tillage areas? So I suppose, like, if you have a tillage farm and you've cows on the farm, are you going to be able to spread your fertilizer over the whole farm?
Yes, well, it's the whole farm stocking rate at the moment, and there's no anticipation to change that in this current the draft NAP. But just to be mindful of the fact, in the derogation, you must comply with the 80% limit, where you have 80% of your farming grassland, and also some of the measures are applicable to the grassland stocking rate rather than the whole farm stocking rate. So just to be mindful of that, like the fencing of the water courses and the moving of the the setback of water trucks from the water courses.
Yeah. And so Ninka, I might go to you, and Dermot might have experience of this as well. So for fertilizer that's been treated with inhibitors and left sitting in storage for several months, does the efficacy of the inhibitor decrease? So if you protected urea sitting in the yard for a year, is that going to be as effective being spread a year after it was bought?
Yeah, so I'm not an expert in the whole protected urea thing, so I really can't say.
Yeah. Dermot, have you experienced them sitting in the bag? Like,
yeah, I think as far as I know, it's 3 months after it's treated that it's still okay. But I remember looking at a bag of protected urea last year, and I couldn't see a label to tell me when was the best before date, and you know, well, maybe it was there, but I couldn't see it, and it needs to be clear on the bag, you know, where when the expiry date is.
Yeah, definitely does. And I suppose you've spread it within the time frame, so you don't know, you know, how spreadability is affected.
Yeah, well, I to be honest, I couldn't, you know, I couldn't comment because I'm not even sure. Maybe it was expired, you know. So some of it could have been spread when it was expired.
Yeah, I suppose it's something for the industry to look at, just maybe to have that on the bag. It's on some of them, I think. So there thoughts on slurry additives. I don't know how this will. Ninka, do you know anything about slurry additives? Have you done research on that?
No, not
at
all.
Or Dermot, have you used them? It's something that's lacking in research in Ireland. Have you used them, Dermot?
I used them a couple of years ago. I did hear, I was talking to somebody in Moore Park, and at the Moore Park Open Day, and I think the results weren't that conclusive, that, you know, they didn't appear to be paying for themselves. But you know, I wouldn't be an expert, you know, that we certainly they do something for the slurry in terms of agitation. You know, they do seem to leave it easier to agitate, but as regards cost effectiveness, I don't know.
Yeah, it's certainly easier to spread. Dermot, while I have you, you've answered this in your presentation, but how much reseeding have you been doing, and what percentage of clover have you in the swards?
We really only started not last year, but the year before. We put well, I won't say, like we normally do. We should be doing 10% per year, and we really weren't. We were doing maybe 5% per year for the last maybe 5 or 6 or 7 years. But you know, we intend to go with the 10% at least in the next few years.
And Dermot, what do you think of multi-species swards, or have you tried them? Or
yes, we sowed multi-species about 5 years ago, and the first couple of years I was very enthusiastic about them, and then the chicory disappeared, and then the plantain disappeared, and now I'm not so excited about them anymore. But you know, maybe there'll be ways of rejuvenating them at a low cost. So you know, I won't be sowing multi-species until there's a better plan there for keeping the chicory and plantain.
Okay.
So that's my yeah.
Yeah. And Ninka, can you see that question there? How does Ireland's projected dairy production going forward fit into the EU Green Deal, which sets a target of 55% reductions in greenhouse gases? So that's the Fit for 55 is the 55% reduction. And will the Dutch industry lose out to Ireland?
Sorry, what was that last bit?
The question is gone. Will the Dutch industry lose out to Ireland? So I suppose if you're cutting cow numbers there.
I'm not sure about that.
It's a hard one.
Yeah, I suppose the starting situation is so completely different. But if you want to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, like there's definitely, like, it's very hard to do that without and still increase production. And I think, yeah, there's going to be some tough choices ahead.
Yeah. Dimna, I might bring you back in. What's the biggest cause of water quality disimprovement? Is it P or N? Do you know that from the information you've gathered? You're on mute there, Dimna.
Sorry, Siobhan. As I've alluded to there in the slides earlier in my presentation, in terms of water quality, both are important. We've seen a stabilizing happening in the P losses, but there's more of an issue with sediment loss. There's elevated N concentrations in monitored stations around the south and southeast of the country. So they're both important, and the mitigating measures will differ for both, as I said, in different intensities in different areas of the country.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Shouldn't all decisions on farm reflect the environmental impact rather than the profit going forward? Does anyone want to comment on that? Maybe Dermot or Ninka might be suited to that. Certainly if we don't have profit, we're going nowhere. What do you think on that, Dermot? I think, like, you know, environment certainly has to be front and center, but we also need to be, in order to be sustainable, we need economics and environment.
Yeah, the only thing I see on the being involved in the signpost program, the only thing I see as maybe costing money rather than increasing profit would be possibly the biodiversity. You know, you just have to do a bit of planting and maybe take out an acre or two for non-productive areas. But aside from that, you know, all the other measures should increase profit. You know, the likes of the protected urea, the clover,
yeah.
You know, what else is there?
Yeah, the less, and a lot of the decisions that we make to improve the environment are going to improve our economics as well.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Do you want to comment on that, Ninka?
Yeah, I would agree with that to a large extent, and even in terms of biodiversity, if you count your multi-species swards in terms of biodiversity, they could pay back themselves in the clover in term as well. I suppose we get into real trouble when we start talking about a reduction in outputs as well. If that is going to be, if the requirements for emissions, to cut back emissions, are going to be so strong that it's going to come to a lower output, then profitability will become at risk. But for the most part, I think a lot of the measures are about efficiency, improving efficiency, and they are definitely good for profit as well.
Yeah. Tim Sheen says their protected urea should be a must instead of straight urea. Well, that's going to change anyway by the end of 2023, isn't it, Dimna?
Yes, and just in relation to the last question on sustainability, I suppose the Agri-Food 2030 strategy places huge importance on all aspects of sustainability, economic and environmental, and also with the CAP strategic plan there'll be support there, like what Dermot mentioned for biodiversity, and that's very important. So that in the current and the next CAP, but enhanced conditionality and the measures under the Rural Development Programme will all assist in that. But they're both equally important, and the environment can't function without farmers, and farmers can't function without the environment, I suppose.
Yeah, good point. Yeah. Question for Dermot. Please explain the use of the slurry hydrometer, and do you see it as a useful decision support tool?
Yeah, when we were spreading slurry there around the 16th or 17th of January, Owen, my advisor from the signpost program, he came out and he brought the hydrometer with him, and so we took a sample of slurry that came straight out of the dribble bar, and it's just a kind of a thing that floats in the slurry, and after a couple of minutes you get a reading, and it was showing up around 3.5% dry matter. So Owen was able to go to a chart, and he was able to calculate how much NP and K was in the slurry. So it's probably not, it mightn't be 100% accurate, but I'm assuming that it's not too far off the mark. So yeah, and I think the hydrometer is quite it's not an expensive tool. I think it's maybe €20 or €30 to buy. So we probably should all be buying one at this stage.
It's a valuable tool. So in your opinion, look, thanks very much to all the panelists. So that's our questions. I see another one there, and there's no one on this panel will answer that, so we'll pass that question on about the availability of protected urea. But in the meantime, Liam, you want to put up a feedback poll, do you? So Liam might put up a feedback poll, and we'd ask you to fill this out if you can. How did you find the meeting and the duration of the event? So there's 3 questions there, if you might just run through them. And look, thanks very much to everyone, and thanks to everyone who worked to bring this meeting to you today, and particularly to Dimna, Ninka and Dermot. And I suppose with that, I'll bring the President Tim back on. So Tim was elected president there this morning at the AGM, and he replaces Mark Plunkett. So thanks very much, Tim.
Thanks, Siobhan, and on behalf of the FAI, let me thank you and all the speakers of today's event, Difna, Ninka, Dermot. Thank you for taking time out to prepare the presentations and deliver the presentations. They've been brilliant, and it's been an excellent and really learning afternoon. Just a couple of things before I finish up. The presentations and the slides will be available online, so they'll be on our website, so keep an eye out for that. I just want to mention Ciara Fox, who is the UCD Soil Science Award winner. So congratulations to her. And finally, then just keep an eye out for the FAI on our website and social media for any events we'll have during the year. So that's it. And thank you all very much for tuning in tonight, this afternoon.